What is up, everybody? Happy Thursday. I'm BobbyFi with my man, Eric Sheets-Haber. We are going to be going through the Thursday night Showdown slate. Had a pretty good Showdown slate last time we did one of these shows. And we've been on a little hot streak overall. We both had a nice night in NBA last night, and we're ready to take it over to the NFL for tonight. What are your thoughts, man, on this little one-gamer?
So my thoughts are similar to there was a 4-game NBA slate a couple of days ago that kind of looked kind of ugly. And my comment was, the prize pools are the same. You know what I mean? Like they're still offering $250,000 for first, regardless of who's playing in the game. You know what I mean? So even though you don't have, I don't know, call them whoever you are, Saints versus Chiefs or whatever it is, and all these like high-powered offenses willing to put up all these points, it's still a contest between you and other people to not get a zillion points, but just get the most points. So you could look at, oh, what a terrible game, what a terrible slate. Okay, but terrible is relative. You know what I mean? You just have to be less terrible than everybody else. The first prize is the exact same amount regardless of who's playing in these games. You know what I mean? So you just have to be realistic about what to expect from your players. And again, you're just trying to create the best lineup of what you have in front of you, not necessarily, the best lineup that could possibly be regardless of who's playing. And I bring that up only because I have this theory, again, because I'm relatively new in DFS, I still have not jaded. I've not been jaded by the whole industry yet. So I can still have my little theories that, since they haven't been proven wrong yet, I can still live with. I do think that in showdowns that people are more likely to overestimate the chances of an offensive success than a defensive success, because human nature really wants to get a big score and they want to be behind good offenses. And I think that in showdowns, especially, I think that people try to come up with reasons why bad offenses can score maybe more often than they should. Maybe that the ownership is a little too high on pass catchers and offensive players in terrible offensive games, just because if it's the one game showdown, people are just much more optimistic and want to just get that higher score. I could be wrong, but I think that's the way I'm thinking about it for now.
That makes sense to me, definitely. Who are some of the plays that stood out to you on tonight's slate? Because we obviously, I mean, I don't think. Look, you can definitely try and win a tournament and fade Lamar Jackson, but I don't think it's likely that you're going to be able to.
So I'll hear my thoughts on this. So I actually do have some thoughts on some key players and some key narratives that are going forward. One narrative that is going throughout the industry is Lamar Jackson's a little banged up, and they're playing a game that they should have no problem winning, right? So there's theories going around, well, what are they going to do? Like, if they get a lead, are they going to shut him down after 3 quarters, right? Or even or after a half or whatever. There's talk of maybe just changing their game plan to fit the fact that maybe he's not 100%. Maybe they would, and we can talk about different game scripts, the way that can go. But that's a narrative that's going to be driving ownership one way or the other here. So here's one way that I think you could be different, right? First of all, there's one guy I'm fading here in this game because I think he's going to be more popular than he should be. I'm going to start with that. And you might think is like kind of a weird thing to say, to fade a guy that most people wouldn't play. But I'm not going to be any part of the RG3 train. An RG3 as Lamar's backup, I think is actually going to garner more ownership than the math says that he really deserves. Even if Lamar is shut down after 3 quarters, you give RG3 even a quarter. I mean, he's still very, very unlikely to reach value. I mean, he's freaking 9K here. You know what I mean? It's not like he's 200. So that is one way I'm dealing with this Lamar Jackson narrative. The other thing that I'm thinking about, and then we can get into other game scripts, is I think that people are going to look at this as one of two ways. They're going to say, you know what, Lamar's just a freaking lock. Like you said, I can't keep him out. I'm just going to throw him into the captain or whatever it is. And other people might get a little nervous to do that because, I don't know, maybe maybe he only plays 3 quarters. Maybe I'll just throw him in the flex. Okay, I think that is probably the wrong idea. I think putting him in the flex is probably the wrong idea. I think that you either take the stand that you get the full Lamar game and you could put him in the captain, and differentiate elsewhere, or you could just, if you have the heart for it, or fade him entirely. I think the worst EV play is probably to put him in the flex.
It's interesting, but I think that to that though, like, what about if you are? Because I mean, I'm guessing. Look, it's going to be, Mark Ingram is going to be the logical captain choice. Otherwise, I kind of like Gus Edwards as an interesting pivot. I'm probably not for a captain, but my favorite captain play actually, it's kind of a weird one as a pivot off of Lamar though, is Jamison Crowder. I think that there's a chance for him to catch a ton of balls in this game. They're going to be playing from behind. I like him sort of as the off the board play. He's a guy who I think I might lock into all my lineups.
That will instantly make you different for sure, and I think that's what you have to do on these slates, 100%. You brought up game script. Let me continue on with my thought, because it actually falls into what you're doing here with Crowder. One way that the Lamar Jackson not having to go full can play out, I think there are two ways. Number one is, like you said, you could do something like Gus Edwards, or if you want to get off the board, even more off the board, we'll talk about Justice Hill a little bit later as another one. But another way that Lamar can just not get into trouble injury-wise or whatever is they could just have him just dump the ball off a bunch of times. You know what I mean? Like, if you could figure out who those, PPR type, like receivers for Baltimore are, maybe that's a way you can go and still fit that game script. But okay, so you're starting with Jamison Crowder as a receiver. Since you brought that up, I guess we could just start off with some other Jet receivers, since you brought up one. So there's some injuries, there's stuff going on. Demaryius Thomas is out, right? So one guy who I don't know how popular he's going to be, but he's looking to be about 15%, but he's certainly going to project from a point per dollar thing, a really, really strong, is this guy Vincent Smith, okay? Vincent Smith is 600, and he is, going to be getting – he got snaps. He actually got 50% of the snaps last week, I think, and he is a very logical kind of punt play to put in. And the other way you could go if you wanted to get off the board with Jets guys is at the tight end position. This guy, I got to find him on the list, but this guy Daniel Brown, he actually played, I think, 80% of the snaps last week as well. And he's only 2,000. So if you did want to, play the Baltimore ahead and Jets coming from behind guys, the guys that you can look at kind of off the board, along with your Jamison Crowders, are honestly off the board because we'll probably be double-digit owned, is Vincent Smith and Daniel Brown.
Yeah, and what about to that point? What about Trevion Wisco?
Ooh, I gotta scroll for him. Trevion Wisco at 200.
Yeah, he's a.
Tell me about him.
So I don't know like a ton about him in general. I know that he got a few snaps. When was it? A few weeks back, and I guess he would be the next in line tight end behind Brown. I don't know if I'm going to do it. I just sort of wanted to throw it out there as a potential because I thought it was kind of an interesting, maybe he catches one touchdown pass and you're obviously thrilled. But I don't know. Like, I'm having a harder time than you are, like, trying to differentiate without going to just guys like that just for the sake of differentiation.
Well, let's take. You want to go a little less off the board, but still a little bit different. Well, I was about to go even someone more off the board, so I'll forget about him. Actually, I'm going to throw him out just before I forget. So Le'Veon Bell is supposedly going to be full go and full playing and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. I don't even want to say this, but if for some reason Ty Montgomery doesn't get his snaps, I mean, Josh Adams would be the next guy or whatever. But let's put him to the side for a second. Guys that you could play that are cheap, that are not completely off the board, is on the poor side. You could play Miles Boykin.
Mm-hmm.
He's only 200. I think I actually paid like 4,000 for him, like in an actual slate a few weeks ago. You know what I mean? So Miles Boykin at 200. Remember, there's other things. As a basketball coach, right? When I'm coaching my team and they're facing a team that we expect to blow out, I know that some of these guys that have not gotten the targets, have not gotten the shots, are looking forward to those games so that they can get some run and maybe get some love and get some shots off. Maybe this could be a game where guys that have been kind of left out that have talent, this could be a game where you get them some touches. Like, I don't know, Miles Boykin. Who's the other guy from ball? Seth Roberts.
Mm-hmm.
He could be another guy.
Mm-hmm.
So I think those guys are at least guys that you've heard of, right? That you don't have to go down to these backup tight ends that you could differentiate that way if you wanted.
Yeah, I think that's kind of interesting. I'm wondering how many snaps did Boykin play last week? I actually don't have that in front of me. I wish I did. That would probably dictate.
It was his lowest one since the season opener, and he's losing playing time to Seth Roberts. So
yeah,
maybe it sounds gross. Paying up for Seth Roberts as opposed to Miles Boykin might be a way to do it. Now, again, we haven't even talked about like the real core plays, like the guys you're really kind of supposed to play. We're kind of starting with the ways to be different, which may or may not be the correct way to approach this. But just so it's out of the way, the guys I mentioned, Justice Hill as kind of like that third running back for Baltimore, that guy Daniel Brown, Vincent Smith, Boykin, and Seth Roberts. But if you want, we can go back to like the I'd say normal in the right way, okay? But the more logical type plays.
Yeah.
But even them, like on Baltimore, like the tight end Andrews, is he out?
No, he's questionable right now, but they say he's expected to try and play.
Okay. So I was going to say, I mean, that's another one you look for. Like if Andrews is out, then you're at those guys like Hayden Hurst and Nick Boyle. You know, again, it's a showdown, so you have to kind of think about ways to be different. So, but if Mark Andrews is in fact ruled out, then those guys become really, really, really logical. But let's say you want to stick with this Jamison Crowder thing. So if you're going to put Jamison Crowder at the captain, I think don't we kind of have to have Darnold in or no?
I think that if we're gonna, I don't think we have to have Darnold in.
If Crowder's the captain?
I mean, it's probably better, like more positive for you two, but like I don't think you have to.
See, that's it. That's interesting. So again, I that's why NFL is not my favorite. I would always imagine that like if you wanted a wide receiver in general, you would love to have the quarterback.
Yeah, you do, but it's a small slate. You can try and get different and stack your lineup different ways. If Gus Edwards gets in the end zone once and whatever, like not that he costs the same as Darnold. I'm trying to think of who else would cost the same as him. No one really. Yeah, you probably would want to, but I don't think it's an absolute necessity is what I would say.
Now let's talk about another play, which is going to be, I think, really popular. And if you want to fade something else, you could fade a 40% owned play that could end up with 5 fantasy points, possibly.
Okay,
you could fade a 43% owned Ravens defense.
That's a good point. I like the Ravens defense, obviously.
Well, obviously. I mean, why not like the Ravens defense? They're at home against the Jets, but
yeah. No, I like. I mean, I tend to have them in most of my builds right now, but I don't think it's like I need to have them. I agree with you that they end up with just 5 points so often here, but I also think that I don't know. It's a really good matchup for them, and looking at other things in their price range, it's not like there's like an exact go-to pivot, is there? Like Gus Edwards at 1,000 cheaper,
or Willie Snead or something like that.
Willie Snead, I don't like that much, but I understand it. I think I'm keeping it a little bit tighter. Like I think I'm just going to play Lamar everywhere. I think I'm going to play Crowder in most of my lineups and captain him in one or two. I think I'm going to play mostly, a mixture of Edwards and Ingram. I think Edwards is the guy who, obviously the lower ownership, he's cheaper. And I think you can play both of them in the same lineup. I think that actually is kind of an interesting way to go too. And don't forget about Justin Tucker. This could be a big Justin Tucker game.
So when I think of playing kickers, I think of 2 ways that the kickers can get there for you, right? One of them being the team just scores so many points that they're just on the field a lot, either kicking field goals, kicking extra points, kicking whatever. And the other way I think of using kickers are on offenses that are just going to stall, right, at like the 30-yard line, so I can get those 45-yard, those 50-yard field goals or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So if you were going to play, and I touched on this last week a little bit, if you were going to play someone like Tucker, like what would be an ideal, if there is such a thing, like an ideal pairing with a kicker for, say, the Ravens?
So, wait, what would be an ideal pairing for Tucker?
Yeah, if you were going to use Tucker. I mean, would you play? Go ahead.
You play the running game. Ideally, you'd play like Ingram, the Ravens defense, and Lamar. I think that would be where I would want to go with it. Guys in.
Like something like this, maybe.
Yeah. That's exactly.
Well, this would be interesting because this one, again, it's so funny how people win money. I don't want to say consistently. There's some people just really, really good at Showdown. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And there just has to be, I don't want to say ideal, but there just has to be a way that the correlation works, that you want to always have a certain, I would say always, because this is football, right? That you want to err towards a certain type of correlation. So I hear, like, you have Crowder in the captain, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, how do you win with one guy from one team in the captain and everybody else from another team in the flex? Is that even possible?
Yeah, it makes perfect sense to me, actually. I do that a lot of times on Showdown slates because you're not in love with, like, obviously if we're just playing this game as a regular game, we're gonna be like, we're gonna not like the Jets, and we're gonna like the Ravens, and we're gonna like the Ravens defense against the Jets, and we're only using one player from the team that we don't want. That's, to me, ideal, and it's a player who could also soak up almost all the usage without even scoring, by the way. So that's what I really like about him specifically as a potential captain here when you're stacking the other team.
Without looking, and I'm not going to look either, what do you think the Jets defense price is?
2,800.
Let's see.
Isn't it?
Oh, it is 12. You knew that already. It is 2,800. I was wondering. I was wondering. I was wondering if they were going to do something really bizarre, like make him 600 or something like that.
Yeah, it's not the worst idea in the world to take a shot, but I like this build a lot. Sure, somebody else could do the same, same exact thing. But to me, that's a cool build. It makes sense logically. You
think people are going to play like the backup tight end in this build?
The backup tight end?
Hurst, isn't he the backup tight end?
No. Hayden Hurst is their first. They drafted Hurst ahead of Lamar Jackson. He's the regular tight end. Andrews doesn't play as many snaps, not even close.
I didn't even realize that he became the tight end.
He's always been. He's never not been. Okay. Andrews sometimes only plays like 18 snaps in the game, 16 snaps in the game.
But even still, even though this leaves 100 on the table, which I don't like, the fact, like you said, the fact that this has the captain from one team, one guy from one team, and everybody else in the flex of the other team, this could be a unique lineup, something like this.
Yeah, I think that's going to be close. I'm doing it even a little. I'm like leaving a little bit of money on it, and I played one like this, and then I think I had one where I downgraded from Tucker, and I played Edwards instead of Hurst. There's a lot of ways you can mess around with it, but I think that, if Crowder has one of those 10 reception games, which is possible, and therefore carries the majority of the offensive work that's done in what should be kind of an ugly, Baltimore dominated performance, he could easily outscore these other guys without even getting in the end zone.
Well, I'm gonna tell you what I'm gonna end up doing, and again, I'm gonna do the same thing I did actually 2 weeks ago. I'm going to enter this for an educational project. I'm going to enter this 150 times in the cheapest one, like in the 50-cent one, just to get practice scripting this and seeing the ROI and stuff, because I really want to get used to how these correlations work and how to be different. So what I'm going to do, I'm probably going to do the same thing that I did a couple weeks ago. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to set a maximum salary. And I like my idea of 49,200 because I know a lot of people are going to leave salary on the table intentionally. But I think 49.2 is kind of that sweet spot where people will go under 49, but maybe not, the 49.2. So that's one thing I'm going to do. The other thing that I'm going to do is I am going to filter through those off the board plays. So I'm going to probably get one of them in a good amount of my lineups between the Daniel Brown and the Vincent Smith and who else we say Justice Hill. Like he's another guy.
Maybe on Wisco.
What's that?
Maybe on Wisco.
I'll put in 15. I'll do a rule where I don't have Daniel Brown. I'll tell you what, I'll have a max one of Daniel Brown and what's his name? Travion Wisco. All I'll say is this: is that the last X amount of weeks, like all these guys were snickering at, the last amount of weeks, the winners had one of those dudes. You know what I mean? So it's probably a good idea. Again, we're just talking about probabilities. Even if each of those guys has a 5%, 10%, 5%, 10% chance of putting up 10 points or something like that, if in fact one of them does, you are just so leveraged, and you have, and especially when you would love to get, a $20,000 Lamar Jackson in your lineup without a lot of stress. Like just we did this last week, right? Just for kicks. Who was the lowest guy we talked about? Let's put in your Wisco in the captain, okay? Just for the hell of it, okay? If you put him in the captain, and if you did this just totally like this, let's just say you went boom, 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 boom. You can almost, and Ravens defense, if you put him in the captain, you could get every most expensive player on the slate, if you include the Ravens as the most expensive player on the slate, in the flex, right? So let's say it's Wesco, let's say it's another guy, because all these guys are the same price. Let's say if one of these guys happens to put up 6-7 points or something like that, and they get 10 points up there, and you get access to all of these guys, I don't know. Or if you even put, let's say you were going to put Lamar Jackson in the captain, which is, look, it's not easy to do. Let's say you put, this is the other one, this Ricard guy. He's another one that I'm going to put in my list. So Wisco, if you put him in, even in here, then you open up yourself. Now you can get Tucker along with real players. You know what I mean? Like you get Lamar in the captain with Le'Veon Bell. You have the two best offensive options here, and the Ravens defense, which might be the third best offensive option in the whole thing. So you could use these $200 guys, and not to say you could afford to get them zeros, but almost. You know what I mean? Like when you have a guy like Lamar Jackson who's so expensive, right?
Yeah, I'll take it back to the Cordarrelle Patterson. Nearly won me all the money because he caught one pass for 33 yards, and he was 2% owned at $200, and those 4 points were enough. And if he got one more for 5 yards, I would have ended up winning it all. So there you go. Anyway, I got to get out of here, but I like these ideas we've gone through. I think these are cool lineups. I actually think this is going to be a fun one tonight. Sheets, anything else for the people before we leave?
Yeah, the good thing is that no one's allowed to play this lineup now, because now that I played it, now if anybody plays it, then they're just tying with me. So we don't want to do that. Look, it's Showdown is, on the one hand, people say it's fun and, let's just have some fun with it. But for me, I really do look at it as a learning experience, because I really do look at it as a way to think about how players correlate and how variance can really help you. You know what I mean? Depending on how many players you have to choose from. If you only have like 35 players to choose from and only so many combinations, you have to figure out some way of being different, which means that you have to kind of, I don't want to throw projections out the window, but have a lot more latitude for projections and a lot more creativity for, other ways games can go.
Absolutely, man. I love doing these videos with you. Appreciate it. All you guys out there, please give us the like and the thumbs up, subscribe, and we'll keep pumping out the content. She's going to be doing a solo video for the NBA tonight on this smaller slate, but an interesting one a little bit later. Thanks for tuning in, guys. We'll talk to you soon.